keywords for this part that we're going to deal with, we're looking at the peripheral nervous system, and we are looking at autonomic nervous system. So the peripheral nervous system here, we are talking about all the nerves around or outside the central nervous system. Remember, is the brain and the spinal cord. All the nerves that are from the brain and the spinal cord are referred to as the peripheral side nerves. And the autonomic nervous system, they are those, the word auto means you are not in control. So it says here it controls involuntary actions. Example of involuntary actions, heartbeat. When you eat, when you sleep, your heart continues to beat. And breathing, you don't control it. After eating, you don't tell your stomach to digest, but digestion takes place. And the secretion of the glands, we know now our glands, they just happen. So this secretion of the hormones by the glands falls under the autonomic nervous system. So, what is sympathetic branch? This sympathetic branch of the nerves is the one that prepares the body for what? For action in emergency situations. Emergency. Then what comes in is the sympathetic. Sympathetic, if you remember in English, when it's sympathy, then you will remember. If you've got sympathy, you feel for somebody. So, or for something, you've got that space. Now this part of the nervous system that is sympathetic, it takes care of us because it kicks in when there is an emergency. Then the parasympathetic branch is only active under ordinary restful conditions. When you are not in danger, you are just sitting, itching, then we are looking at the nerves that are active there as the parasympathetic branch or parasympathetic nerves. The diagram here shows you the peripheral nervous system. Remember we said we are talking about the nerves around the brain and the spinal cord. So this diagram just shows you the nerves that we are talking about when we are talking about the peripheral nervous system. Then, autonomic. Remember, you break this word into two. Auto, you don't have control. Involuntary. So, autonomic nervous system is the autonomic system that has two branches. The parasympathetic and the sympathetic. Remember, the sympathetic emergency. It kicks in for the emergency. The sympathetic, when you are at rest, you are restful. There's nothing that makes you to be at the edge. So we have the parasympathetic branch that kicks in. Here now, I'm going to give you a table that gives you the difference between the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. Let's look what is the difference between the two. The sympathetic, remember, emergency, increases heartbeat. Why heartbeat need to increase? Because we need more energy. And parasympathetic, what does it do? It decreases. This one increases the heart rate, and then parasympathetic will decrease your heart rate. You are at rest. You don't need too much energy. And you don't need too much of the blood to be pumped to your muscles. Then sympathetic, what does it do? It relaxes the wall of the bladder. Then this one called the parasympathetic contracts the wall of the bladder. The sympathetic dilates the pupil. When you are surprised, you are in an emergency, then the pupil will dilate. It will become bigger. If you are at rest, there's nothing that is coming, there's nothing that shows danger to you, your pupil will constrict, they will become small. There's nothing that is showing you that you are in danger. Then sympathetic again. What will happen if we're looking at the sympathetic? It constricts many arteries, and this will dilate many arteries. And again, the sympathetic increases body pressure, while the parasympathetic will decrease. So if you look at the functioning of parasympathetic and sympathetic, they work antagonistically. If one increases, the other one will decrease. That's how they work together in our system to keep us going. Then we dealt with a central nervous system, the brain, the spinal cord, the neurons. But let's see if we've got the defects or some diseases that affect these, the nervous system. And which diseases are we dealing with now? We've got Alzheimer's disease. So we look at this diagram that will give you the idea of the Alzheimer's disease. We look at this neuron, meaning it affects the neurons. If you look at this neuron, the axon here has been damaged. Then we refer to this as Alzheimer's disease. Remember, we've got the neurons. This is the brain. We've got the neurons in the brain. So we say Alzheimer's disease, progressed brain cell. It's a progressive brain cell death that occurs over a long period of time. Usually it affects people at this age, older people, at 65. And it is mostly another form of what we call dementia. Then what are the symptoms of this Alzheimer's disease? It's memory loss. You know, once you grow up, you start to forget. Hence, older people start to speak to themselves so that they should not forget what they wanted to do. So here we say an Alzheimer's disease, its symptom will be memory loss, but it should be severe memory loss and confusion. But do we have the cure for that? No. For now, we don't have the cure, but the disease is there. The next one that we are dealing with multiple sclerosis. Then let's look at the neurons again. It means it affects the neurons. But here now, we see the myelin sheath that has been damaged here. So this is a progressive degenerative disorder of the central nervous system. Remember, brain and the spinal cord. So here, it damages the myelin sheath. Like you see in the diagram, the myelin sheath is damaged. Remember, myelin sheath needs to cover the axon. But you look at these spaces, it means myelin sheath has been damaged. So the diagnosis it is diagnosed between the ages of 20 to 40. If you look at the multiple sclerosis, it's not only for aged people. It starts from the age of 20 to 40. And it mostly affects women more than men. Sad, eh? Then what are the symptoms? It's again loss of speech and vision. So it affects your eyes. And once it affects your speech, it means also the brain is not functioning well. And it also affects your vision. And it makes you not being able to walk because they say you experience difficulty in walking, which means your cerebellum also is affected. And then there's pain, there's fatigue, there's again memory loss. So this is the second disease that affects our nervous system. Do we have a cure? No, we don't have a cure so far. We're now looking at the summary of the lesson. We're looking at the central nervous system where we said it consists of the brain and the spinal cord. Functions, we did the functions and the structure of the brain And again, the spinal cord, and we talked to the synapse when we were talking about the reflex action on the reflex arc. We did talk to the reflex arc, reflex action, and I did show you the diagrams. And then we did talk to the diseases that affect the nervous system, which is the Alzheimer's disease and the multiple sclerosis. This brings us to the end of our lesson. Thank you very much, guys.